This is a image of Bradford County, Florida Sheriff Gordon Smith. Now, March 11th, 2026, my husband and I filed a federal United States District Court civil rights lawsuit in Jacksonville, Florida. This is the case number. And as you can see, John Miller, Bradford County Telegraph Incorporated, and George Paul Gordon Smith, Sheriff of Bradford County, was sued in this lawsuit. And this is a complaint that challenges Florida's squatter law for violating Title II of the American with Disabilities Act, among other things. It asks for money damages. And here is a mortgage loan disbursement on 3/27/2026 to us for $130,000. And it has monthly payments and amortization schedule. It says 2026 totals, 0 payments are due. It says that the first payment is due on 11/27/2027. Now, John Miller signed this with instructions to his executor right here on March 27th, 2026. Here we see that the United States District Court in Jacksonville, Florida, on March 11th, 2026, filed our Title II American with Disabilities Act lawsuit. This is the number. It is against John Miller, Bradford County Telegraph Incorporated, George Paul Gordon Smith, Sheriff of Bradford County, Florida. And it's a complaint for declaratory, injunctive, and monetary relief under Title II of the American with Disabilities Act. And it challenges Florida's squatter law. And this lawsuit was easily, verifiably pending by the Bradford County Sheriff deputies who came with this so-called squatter complaint and walked us off the property and took the autism horses and ponies yesterday. Today is my birthday. This was what they did to me on my birthday, is they made sure to inflict the maximum amount of harm you could inflict on an autistic adult. The Bradford County Sheriff deputies. So I did a lot of AI legal research, and the upshot of John Miller and on behalf of Bradford County Telegraph Incorporated dispersing the mortgage loan and giving us the amortization table with the first loan payment due 11/27/2027 is that it is consistent with the prior 2024 handwritten purchase offer and 100% mortgage financing offer, which we accepted in writing in August 2024. And that was before John Miller published in the Bradford County Telegraph newspaper on about Thursday, January 23rd, 2025, the fact statement that I am the word used was owner of the farm property. He said located off of CR 100A in Stark, Florida, and other papers reference the exact location. And basically, my legal research with the AI showed me that when a property seller disperses a mortgage loan and gives an amortization schedule with the first payment due on it, they're under a simultaneous concurrent duty to record the mortgage and convey the deed. So we are essentially the owners of this property, and we have a right to be on the property because you wouldn't disperse a mortgage loan in an amount of $130,000 and set an amortization table of the loan payments for an unauthorized person on the property, or for someone who didn't have the right to be on the property. You wouldn't do that. That's just, nobody would do that. It doesn't make any logical or common sense. So, John Miller, and this is signed by him right here. Here they are. He filed this Florida squatter complaint against us yesterday on April 15th. He says he's making it under penalty of perjury. And notice down here, he says that each statement is true and correct, and he understands that the statements made in this petition are made under penalty of perjury, punishable as provided in Section 837.02 Florida Statutes. The things he said was that we were an unauthorized person or persons who unlawfully entered. In the fall of 2018, Dylan Harrison, stating he was acting for his mother, Terry L. Harrison, and John Miller, voluntarily let us in possession of the property. 4 written text messages sent from Dylan Harrison's phone to my husband, David Petrano, and were obviously circulated with John Miller, making an agreement that John Miller and Bradford County Telegraph would take a deed in lieu of foreclosure from Terry L. Harrison. They would allow us to assume the Harrison's mortgage. The price of the property then, the county property appraiser was valuing it just before that at around $29,000 because it was like a literal flooding swamp that I got comments on some of my YouTube videos that no human or horses should have been living in. And they gave us possession, and John Miller agreed to do the paperwork, and we did not enter unlawfully because those text messages are filed in several of the pending lawsuits and several of the lawsuits that are the initial case that is now on appeal. And those text messages were readily available for the Bradford County Sheriffs deputies to take a look at. So this is Florida Statute 82.036. And it states that in order for a sheriff to execute that kind of squatter complaint on someone, under subsection 2C, an unauthorized person or persons have unlawfully entered. That's one of the elements that has to be satisfied in order for the sheriff to legally and validly execute walking someone off the property on a squatter complaint, on this kind of squatter complaint. But what did John Miller say? That an unauthorized person or persons have unlawfully entered. Well, that's just not true. Then John Miller, how then did you disperse a $130,000 mortgage loan on 3/27/2026 make the first payment not due until 11/27/2027. 0 payments due in 2026. And sign instructions to your executor with your handwritten signature to make sure this goes through. Does that look like an unauthorized person or persons? Heck no! It's knowing and material perjury stated in this squatter complaint under penalty of perjury, by John M. Miller, president of Bradford County Telegraph, Inc. What did he do? Well, here is this United States District Court Title II ADA lawsuit for declaratory injunctive relief and monetary damages. It's against John Miller, Bradford County Telegraph, Inc., George Paul Gordon Smith, Sheriff of Bradford County, Florida. It's filed on March 11th, 2026. See what it says? USDC FLMDJAX. That is the United States District Court for the Middle District of Florida, Jacksonville Division. Yes, that's perjury. And it was readily verifiable by the Bradford County Sheriff deputies. And you really have to wonder if those are the sheriff deputies who are hacking my computer and they knew that the summons had been issued, including against the Bradford County Sheriff, for monetary damages under Title II of the American with Disabilities Act and challenging the constitutionality of Florida squatter statutes. You have to wonder if they walked us off the property to seize our evidence and our lawsuit documents in order to obstruct that federal case. The timing sure looks like it. It sure looks like it. Because this squatter complaint came out of the clear blue. So, and here is Miller's own lawyer, Charles Daniel Sykes. See, it's from Charles Daniel Sykes. Rat-finking on John Miller, president of Bradford County Telegraph, Inc., which this is a declaration against interest. This is an admission by John Miller and Bradford County Telegraph, Inc.'s lawyer, Charles Daniel Sykes, that there was pending litigation related to the real property at the time that Miller stated in the complaint that there was no pending litigation, perjury, to induce the Bradford County Sheriff deputies to execute the squatter complaint and walk us off the property. When we had accepted this mortgage loan disbursement for $130,000 on 3/27/2026 in writing, and no payments were due until 11/27/2027. 0 payments due in 2026. This is proof we had a legal right to be on the property. Because under Florida law, when you disperse the mortgage loan, the seller and property owner is required to record the mortgage and convey the deed. And John Miller signed it. And we accepted it in writing on April 6th in a response to this mortgage loan disbursement and amortization papers. And that was before anything else had happened after he hand-delivered this loan disbursement and amortization document. So, we were illegally walked off the farm property and my medically prescribed autism service horses were taken into custody by Bradford County Sheriff Animal Control without ever serving any notice to leave the property on me or on my husband, David Petrano, or any due process notice on Petrano Farm LLC, DBA Best Horses Riding Lessons, or on Mary Catherine Day Petrano Irrevocable Special Needs Trust. Bradford County Sheriff Gordon Smith cannot produce any such notice to the LLC or the Special Needs Trust, but had his sheriff's deputies take all 15 medically prescribed autism therapy and service horses and ponies into custody of animal control because we were being walked off the property, preventing me from feeding them, trimming hoofs, and caring for them. So we sent a letter to George Paul Gordon Smith, Bradford County Sheriff here, and to the Bradford County Attorney's Office, the contract attorney for Bradford County Attorney's Office who represents the sheriff. And we detailed the perjury. We detailed John Miller, Bradford County Telegraph, Inc.'s own attorney, making the email admission there was pending litigation related to the real property at the time that John Miller, as president of Bradford County Telegraph Incorporated, swore under penalty of perjury that there was no pending litigation related to the farm property. Okay, so we sent this letter to the Bradford County Sheriff, George Paul Gordon Smith, and now there's another legal counsel is being sent to. And so this letter lays forward everything, how there's the text messages it voluntarily places in possession in 2018, how we've got this 2024 written purchase mortgage financing offer and a written acceptance. Now, the sheriff's not a judge, by the way. So the sheriff cannot adjudicate whether or not a written offer and acceptance of 2024 is valid or not, or whether there's a string of documents, written documents and text extending into 2026 that's part of it, and it's valid or not. So we have a sheriff trying to be a judge, play judge, and adjudicate, and I believe that may have been Sergeant Ward, but there were other deputies there too, but he was there. And I already said how they walked me off, and we gave them this mortgage loan disbursement amortization table, and John Miller signing it in writing with his name and executor instructions. We also gave the sheriff deputies, the sheriff here, Gordon Smith, the exact 5 case numbers that are pending related to the real property, the farm real property, involving John Miller and Bradford County Telegraph, Inc., and what courts they're pending in. They readily could have checked them out. And Sergeant Ward refused to take a copy of any of these documents, the text that voluntarily led us into possession of the farm property, the 2026 mortgage loan disbursement and amortization schedule stating what payments are due. I mean, because no one disperses a mortgage loan or makes an amortization table if somebody is an unauthorized squatter on a property. They just don't do that. We were authorized to be on that property, which proves that. And here's the pending cases right here. And Sergeant Ward said that he didn't have to look at that. He said he didn't care at all about this pending case here. And even though he had actual notice of it, which can trigger the sheriff's time deadline, file an answer to it. He said that he's not accepting that and, left it on the ground. Clearly, given all these pending cases, which are easy to verify, all he would have to do is go on Pacer. The public can go on Pacer. Anyone can go on Pacer and check out if these cases are open and pending or not, and if they involve John Miller and Bradford County Telegraph, Inc., and if they are related to the real farm property at issue. You've got this squatter complaint sworn under penalty of perjury by John Miller, stating there's no litigation related to the real property pending between the property owner and any person sought to be removed. Signs it here, under penalty of perjury here. His lawyer, on the same day, answers my United States District Court 301G confer notice about 2 of these open pending cases related to the farm real property by conferring with me, which is an admission, a declaration against John Miller's interest and Bradford County Telegraph Incorporated's interests that they are committing perjury, this squatter complaint. And clearly, the Florida Statute 82.036, Florida Statutes, subsection 2H, requires for a valid, legal and valid, not void, execution of a squatter complaint to be made by a sheriff, that this condition, this requirement is subsection H, there is no pending litigation related to the real property between the property owner and any known authorized person, that has to be satisfied. It is plainly and clearly, verifiably and provably not satisfied. The sheriff here, on receipt of such a complaint, shall verify. First, one element, and then there's this word and here comes the second element, appears otherwise entitled to relief under this section. Well, the sheriff did not do his shall verify. Not at all. The Bradford County Sheriff, the sheriff, deputies, and Sergeant Ward did not. Because they did not verify that there is no pending litigation. Here, this element. What do you call this? What do you call this? So, I have a question for y'alls. Do you think that the Bradford County Sheriff found out that they had been sued for money damages under Title II of the American with Disabilities Act, challenging the squatter statute, and they aided John Miller and Bradford County Telegraph to file a squatter complaint with knowing perjury, sworn under penalty of perjury, that did not meet this element here? There is no pending litigation. They took my other shoe. They took my toothbrush, knowing I had had dental infections that can be a cause of breast cancer. I had dental infections for 8 years, and Mayo Clinic had to get breast cancer grants and foundations to help pay for me to get that dental treatment. So, they also have the autism service horses and ponies in custody. Not one notice was served on my husband or I to leave the property. Not one. Not one. No due process notice to leave was served on Petrano Farm LLC, DBA Best Horses Riding Lessons, or on the Mary Catherine De Petrano Irrevocable Special Needs Trust, or the David Frank Petrano Irrevocable Special Needs Trust, the first one of which owns the 15 horses and ponies. They have seized and taken under custody with no due process notice to the trust. So, I'm not going to shut up about what they did to me. I'm an adult with autism, and there's all these pretty, nicey nice videos by so many other autistic adults, but I have more severe autism than most of them. And I see these parent videos about, oh, my autistic child will never be able to live on their own when they grow up. And, do you ever consider what will happen to your child when you pass away? Because that may happen. My mother passed away. And I'm not going to shut up. I want you all to know the real life lived experience of some of us autistic adults and how we are abused, financially exploited, perjury is used against us by property owners who have made an agreement to sell us the property, who wants to take $415,331.50 of autism support money in the form of the improvements to the property, which is our property, because Florida Statute 825.101 says so. And I just want to say, this is reality. You may be up there in heaven looking down from above on your autistic child, now grown up, and be watching this happen to them. Think about that.